Hello and welcome to another week of Around the Nest. I'm Jesse Tolton Goldberg-Strassler, and we're about to J-Talk our way through the Toronto Blue Jays organization. We'll begin this week with AA, with Bob Lipman with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. And Bob, where do we find you this week?
I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's our first trip in to see the Nationals AA Farm Club, the Harrisburg Senators, and we've got a 7 o'clock game tonight.
Well, beautiful. How have things been for the Fisher Cats recently?
Just played our first homestand post-All-Star break, and it started, Jesse, really well. We took 3 out of 4 from the first-place Portland Sea Dogs. They've been a tough team for everybody in our league this year, and then followed that up, unfortunately, by dropping 3 out of 4 to the Thunder, the team we've been battling for 4th place with. So ended up a 4-4 homestand, not too bad, and then came out here last night and opened this 7-game road trip in style. Andy Burns and John Birdie hit homers early. Daniel Norris was pretty good, 5 scoreless innings, and Fisher Cats opened the Harrisburg series with a 5-3 win, and we've got the local kid, Casey Lawrence, who grew up right nearby here on the mound tonight, and they tell me that he's got over 70 on the guest list, so it should be fun, kind of fun there.
Is that right? I've known when Casey Lawrence pitches that his mother sends out a terrific newsletter to let everybody in Sherrystown, Pennsylvania know. My gosh, over 70.
You know, and he was scheduled to pitch on our last road trip. We were in at Reading, and we were rained out on July the 3rd, and he didn't get a chance to pitch there despite having all the friends and family in the house. So tonight there are no weather worries, and hopefully they'll get to see a pretty good Casey Lawrence here. He comes into the game with an ERA of 2.94, and he's just been terrific, and we'll see what Harrisburg can do with him.
I was speaking with a member of the Lansing Lugnuts who saw Casey Lawrence pitching in spring training, and he said there might have been nobody pitching as well as Casey Lawrence was in Dunedin before the season was scheduled to start. He said, good to him. You could have put him into the major leagues right there, and he wouldn't have embarrassed you. And it's been so fantastic to see him carry this out over the course of the year. But let me ask, how has he gotten better this season?
You know, I think in Casey's case, it's just all about the consistency. And what we're finding here, and he's getting the outs, obviously, at the AA level, it's just repeating and repeating and repeating. I think he's learning to trust a little bit and throw his secondary pitches in the tough counts. It had been maybe as a younger pitcher, he'd get to 3-2, kind of rely maybe on the fastball a little bit too much. Now he's not afraid to throw even a changeup in those kind of counts, and he's getting the outs. And certainly the Blue Jays have to be impressed with the results. Obviously, a guy that didn't have a high ceiling coming out of Albright College in Reading, Pennsylvania, but he's just a terrific athlete.
Now, he's the local guy playing in Harrisburg. The local person for the Fisher Cats when you're at home is Kevin Nolan. And Kevin Nolan started to stroke it. I was looking at his player day by day, especially a 184 batting average in April, just a 191 average in May. In June, he improved to 279, and then he caught fire in July, and he earned his promotion up to AAA.
Yeah, you know, in the case of Kevin, I don't think he had to do a whole lot differently. I think he was really victimized by a lot of bad luck early, hitting the ball hard, but hitting it at people. Obviously, when you're looking up at the scoreboard and you're seeing that, 174, 193, it's got to get in your head a little bit. And then all of a sudden the hit started coming, and it's just that confidence factor. And you're right, he's one of several players, and Andy Burns is another one that we should probably talk about while we're on the air today, completely turned the season around here in the second half.
As a matter of fact, I'm looking over the comments on Bluebird Banter as we've partnered up with SB Nation this year. There was a comment about Andy Burns, a questioner wondering what are the chances of him ever cracking the majors and what would his ceiling be. So what have you seen from Andy and what do you think?
Listen, I'm one of those guys who believes if you can hit, you can play in the major leagues. playing third base is obviously a very difficult position. Andy Burns handles it extremely well. He's got decent range. He's got an exceptionally accurate throwing arm. If he keeps on hitting the ball like he's been hitting it, and he's another one of these guys who's added 40, 50 points to his batting average in the second half of the year. Why not? I mean, he's from a solid program, University of Arizona, and we'll see what the next level will bring for Andy. I'm sure he's going to get an opportunity to move on to AAA. And again, let's remember that Toronto has really moved a lot of these guys along at a young age. Andy's only 23 years old, and he has about a year of AA experience. Now I kind of would expect that he'd be 260 to 275 hitter, and I think that's where he's going to level out.
Speaking of youngsters, even younger than Andy Burns is Dalton Pompey, a commenter writing, I read a while ago after his promotion that the fans could expect to see him in late 2015, early 2016, wondering if that was a realistic projection.
I'm not going to, again, 21 years old, Jesse, so, what's the rush? I mean, he's obviously got still plenty to learn. Remember, this was the guy who came up and, 1 for 30 and apologized to me for his slow start at AA. Well, look what's happened now. He has 4 consecutive multi-hit games. The batting average going into tonight is 261. Pompey is the potential here to be a special kind of player. We talk about those 5-tool players. He gets tremendous range in the outfield, good throwing arm, the speed without question. If he's not the fastest guy in the team, he's right there with John Birdie. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm not going to say that he's going to be a major leaguer by next year, but who knows? Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes, it would be. Well, you had a player start with you this season who's up in the major leagues. Aaron Sanchez is certainly gathering a lot of attention his way. A question about Aaron Sanchez was sent in for all the broadcasters in the system, and it was twofold. Best Sanchez performance you've seen and your favorite Aaron Sanchez story.
I think my favorite Aaron Sanchez story was him going to Olympic Stadium and beating the Mets there right at the end of spring training in what I thought was a dominating performance for a young guy. That got us really excited for the season here in 2014, and it kind of showed you how good Aaron Sanchez could be. And, boy, look, there's no question he struggled with the Fisher Cats a little bit, but he finished up really, really well. A couple of wins there in June before his promotion on. Where we had the most difficulty, and I think a lot of people have realized he's kind of worked on mechanics a little bit, was not the same pitcher with guys on base. And he made his major league debut the other night, and it was great to see. Again, he didn't have to pitch with anybody on base because he retired everybody. So let's realize that there's probably going to be a few hiccups down the road as teams get to find out what Aaron Sanchez is all about. But, man, there's so much talent there. It bothers me a little bit when I start to hear, and I had Mike Wilner's post-game show on after the Blue Jays beat the Red Sox yesterday, where fans are like, should we trade Aaron Sanchez and Marcus Stroman, or Aaron Sanchez and Daniel Norris? And that's tough because we're so close to them on this younger level, but we do realize that if the Blue Jays have that opportunity to get a guy like David Price, well, it's going to come at a pretty hefty price.
Yes, very well said. This is Bob Lipman of the AA New Hampshire Fisher Cats. We know where Aaron Sanchez is, how far he's come. I was a commenter who was wondering, what has become of Jonathan Jones?
I think he's an odd man out in the organization as an outfielder right now. He's on our temporary inactive list. And Jesse, to be honest, I'm not sure what the status is and whether or not the Blue Jays are looking for a new home for Jonathan Jones, or whether there's something that personal he wanted to take care of, but he's not with the team right now.
And finally, our question of the week on Around the Nest, beginning with Bob in New Hampshire. Bob, there's 1 month to go. We're into the final week of July, and then off we'll go in August. So in your ideal August, what gets accomplished for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats?
I guess it's let's finish up strong and get ourselves to a 500 season. We have 37 games starting tonight. All right, let's say the Fisher Cats win 23 of them. That would give the team a winning record for 2014. I think it's really important to set, team goals like that when you realize that we're not going to make the playoffs this year. Portland and Binghamton are so far out in front of us that there's not going to be any kind of late season magic. So you go out and you, as an individual, you obviously are putting on your best for the Toronto Blue Jays night in and night out because you want to protect your status in the organization. But team goals, let's keep playing well, see if we can't finish up. We'll set the bar at 72 and 70 and see if we can get there.
Bob, before we say farewell for another week, your very next home game will be next Thursday night, July 31st against Reading, and it's play ball for Chad night. Tell me about this.
Each year, CHAD, by the way, stands for the Children's Hospital at Dartmouth. And for those, maybe in the Boston area, there's tremendous medical support in the city of Boston, great hospitals. Well, New Hampshire has Dartmouth. And the Children's Hospital at Dartmouth has made great strides. They've been a big partner of ours. And what we do is we go out and sell tickets online, use special promo code, and if you do that, portion of the proceeds are going to go to the Children's Hospital at Dartmouth. I'm involved in a couple of different organizations on the side that help raise money for CHAD as well. There's now a high school football game that's involved. So what we'll do is we happen to have our connections at the Red Sox, and they're going to bring the 2004 and 2007 and 2013 World Series trophies to Northeast Delta Dental Stadium, and fans will have an opportunity to have their pictures taken with those as well, and we always have fireworks on Thursday.
For more information, nhfishercats.com. Bob Lippman, thank you very much.
Jesse, you have a great week. Everybody in the organization, keep on winning.
From Bob Lippman in New Hampshire, now to Ben Wagner with the AAA Buffalo Bisons. Ben, how are you?
Doing great, Jesse. How's everybody today?
Very well. Let us begin with Aaron Sanchez. Sanchez moves up. We talked about him going from the starting rotation to the bullpen with Buffalo, and that was in preparation for being called up to the major leagues to be used as a reliever. So questions from Bluebird Banter. What's the best Aaron Sanchez performance that you saw in person, and also your favorite story about Aaron?
Well, I think the best performance that we saw was in the final outing that he made with the Bisons. It was quick, 12 pitches, 7 strikes. He faced the minimum, gave up a swinging bunt single on the third base line, recovered very quickly, induced a ground ball with the frequent use of the two-seam fastball that he'd used in the last couple of starts before the All-Star break, and also tried to use in his first outing from the bullpen, got a quick double play ball off of that, and then blew away the guy on 4 pitches, I think, in the final batter that he faced in the minors. So that really set the tone for what would be on display at Rogers Center the other day. That was, in my mind, important for 2 reasons. One, the performance out of the bullpen, but also there were 2 days, and only 2 days, in between his last appearance at the minor league level. Not only that, but it was coming on the heels of a 10-day layoff. He made the bullpen assignment by throwing 1 inning, and he comes out and he throws another inning with only 2 days in between, which is rather short turnaround for a guy that's, used to starting as well. So that's why it became kind of an important outing for me to make sure that the body felt strong. And he told me before he made that outing, his body felt like it responded really well to the time off and didn't have too much of the residual soreness that some guys have when they make that transition or have to turn around in short order. So that to me was a really good sign of where he was in terms of stuff, getting his body ready to make that appearance, and I thought it was the most important appearance, and clearly so did Alex Anthopoulos, to bring him to the big leagues.
From one starter turned reliever and a top prospect to another, Kyle Drabek began the season in your starting rotation, made 13 starts from April all the way through June with a little bit of a hiccup every now and then. And now he's a member of the bullpen, and as of late, he's been firing goose eggs. What have you been seeing from Kyle, And to put it into the words of a Bluebird Banter commenter, is his minor success thus far in the bullpen a sign of things to come, or is it merely fueled by luck and over-aggressive competition?
I don't know if it's over-aggressive competition. I wouldn't go that far. I think fastball location, one, is important for Kyle. He does not have the blow-away fastball anymore, and I think he's had to adjust how he approaches guys in their approach as well, and read a little bit more swings and work hand-in-hand and try to set up guys to make outs. That to me, has worked in his favor since moving to the bullpen. And the first outing was kind of almost a pseudo start as well, because for him it was a completion of a game. So it looks like in a box score, it looked like he was a reliever, but he really wasn't. But every time that he's been asked to come in for short or even 2-inning stints, Kyle's had pretty good stuff. And I really think that moving forward, the best role for Kyle is likely going to be in a bullpen situation.
What role should Brett Wallace fill with this Buffalo Bison squad?
Well, I think he's going to have to fill two roles, playing first base, especially now that Mike McDade has been sent back to AA New Hampshire. So he's going to have to play some first base, and he's going to have to DH and also be he's going to have to be a power bat. And once Brett starts to work his way around and feel his way back, into a new environment with this clubhouse and get comfortable once again, you think that I do, at least, for a guy that hit 24 home runs last year, the adjustment at the plate for him is not going to be that bad. So I think he'll find that stroke once again, and once he gets his legs out underneath him, he's going to be the replacement for Dan Jansen at first base / in that DH position.
This is Ben Wagner, the voice of the Buffalo Bisons. There's another question sent in via Bluebird Banter that I enjoy, and I think I know what your answer is going to be. It's about Kevin Pillar. And it said, prior to his outburst with the Jays, he seemed to be very quiet and acted as a rookie should. After, in an interview after he got sent down, seemed level-headed. Do you see him being level-headed or prima donna in waiting? Your thoughts on Kevin Pillar?
In 100%, there is no prima donna. 100% conviction I can make that statement. Kevin Pillar is an individual, as an athlete, that has had to grind for every opportunity. He had to grind for an opportunity even to get a chance to play baseball out of high school. He had to work at that opportunity, get playing time while he was in college. He had to fight, claw, scratch, and improve himself after being a late-round draft choice. And, everybody's heard the story, signed for $1,000. And then he had to hit his way from level to level, proving to everybody that he is a player. He's gotten to AAA. The numbers got him an opportunity in the big leagues. And knowing him like I have now over the last year, because he was a mid-season promotion from AA to Buffalo, and then a late August call-up from Buffalo to the big leagues last year, knowing him, knowing his mental approach, and also understanding, even as early as spring training, the difference from him and why he wasn't successful at the major league level, and that didn't translate, I don't get any sense, because prima donnas I don't want to say that they don't understand work ethic, but nobody really has the drive if things just come easily. And prima donnas usually things happen just so easily for them that they don't understand the grit and the grind for many players. And the grit, the grind, and the fight and the competitiveness that Kevin Pillar has just as an athlete, I think he just got labeled wrongly, out of the situation. And, I really think looking at the whole story and the whole situation, unfortunately, just got cast in a bad light, especially on the social sphere.
A player with different sorts of baseball skills, and yet when you talk about grit and grind, I note that Ryan Schimpf has gone on a home run binge for Buffalo, and I wonder how it looks in person.
Well, it looks great. It looks like the swing that produced those power numbers last year. We didn't get to see it in the first stint. He had the one home run at AAA, and he's hit 5 of his 6 since in this second stint, and they've been coming in bunches, especially over the last brief little moment out of the All-Star break and around the All-Star break. It's a short, compact swing. He's clearly started to make the adjustment from a approach perspective at the plate and how he's been pitched. And you know what? He's laying off some stuff that some veteran guys got him to chase earlier when he was with us as well. And from Ryan Schimpf's perspective too, he's kind of calmed himself down at the plate. So this is a nice little sign for a player that got a small little taste of AAA life, got exposed a little bit, went back down in Double-A, put up good numbers, and now once again finds himself in a really, really good situation for the Bisons.
Finally, with Ben Wagner with the Buffalo Bisons, what would be an ideal August for the herd? What would that look like?
Well, I think to make a chance, when you look at the standings, at a run towards the wild card, there are a lot of teams in between where Buffalo sits right now in the standings from a division standpoint, and maybe too many games to climb out of the hole. Wild card, with the number of teams that are in between, Buffalo is going to need some help. But to really put together a run with a roster that is constantly in flux, I think that would be a very good month of August. But also from an individual standpoint, this is the time of year, especially at the AAA level, you hear the term salary drive. Guys want to have good numbers to close out the course of the rest of the minor league season. I'm not even talking about guys trying to get that September call-up. These are guys that are trying to hit their landmarks, whether they get to 15 or 20 home runs or have a career high in home runs, stolen bases, hit for that 300 average. Because if you can hit a couple of those little checkpoints on a player's goal sheet at the beginning of the year and get to those in a run of August and close out early September strong, you pretty much can assure yourself of coming back with either the organization that you're with or another organization is going to give you a chance based on those numbers alone, possibly for employment coming around to spring training the next year through. So a salary drive is always important, and you hope that it also results in winning baseball. All those things come together. I think Buffalo now, from a young team, more towards a veteran approach with the roster that's here, is going to be good. Plus some guys that are here to do some things to get right back on track. And the Blue Jays fan base will automatically look at Steve Delabar, Sergio Santos, some of those guys, you know, from a bullpen perspective that are down here to get frequent innings. If they can find themselves once again in good routines, maybe an opportunity to once again join the Jays in September.
90s night tonight, then Pirates night tomorrow night at Coca-Cola Field. Buffalo Bisons in the midst of a massive homestand. Ben Wagner, thank you very much, and best of luck.
All right, thank you, Jesse, and thanks to those fans for pumping in the questions on Bluebird Banter.
From Ben Wagner in AAA, we head our way down the ladder to Class A Advanced, the Dunedin Blue Jays, and their broadcaster, Al Hernandez. Al, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jesse. How are you today?
Doing very well. Let's begin with Sean Nolan. Heading to see the left-hander on his way back up toward AAA, rehabbing. And so how is Sean looking in the Florida State League?
Sean's looked very good. He made his first start last week. He went 2 2/3 innings and actually ran his pitch count up. He was expected to go about 3. He went a little shorter than that, obviously. He gave up 1 run. He did walk a pair as well. But I wouldn't say he was really getting hit. The 1 run came in an inning where he issued a 2-out walk, and then a wild pitch and a single brought home that runner. But besides that, he struck out 5, and he looked very sharp, and he looked even better in his second outing, which was just the other day yesterday against Charlotte. He went 4 2/3 innings. He struck out 4 as well, and he was only expected to go about 4, so it was impressive that he was able to keep that pitch count low and work into the 5th and almost completed it. Unfortunately, though, he got the hook after striking out the last man he faced because a pair of walks bumped that pitch count up a little higher than we were hoping to see him go.
There was a question sent in via a Bluebird Banter commenter, and I'm not too sure how well we can answer this, about whether the Blue Jays organization still sees him as a long-term option in the rotation. A number of other commenters piled on and wondered various this or that with Nolan, especially how things have gone. And yet, these have all sounded like promising signs. What do you feel is the next step for him, and what does Sean feel is the next step for him in getting back to where he was?
Well, I haven't spent too much time chatting with Sean, so I can't tell you what his perspective is on the whole thing. But first, I would definitely say I do still believe he's part of the Blue Jays' future rotation, and I think the Blue Jays do. He's a good, strong lefty. He's a very large guy, 6'4", 230 pounds. He went to school in Texas. I feel like any pitcher that's ever even entered the state of Texas grows an inch and adds 20 pounds. But he's a very
now
strong
I know where
guy.
I went wrong.
Oh, yes, of course. That's my mistake as well. I wish I had gone to Texas. But I think that he's got a bright future, obviously. he came here and he dominated previously in Dunedin. And obviously it's a long way from where he's now peaked. He's now up in that AAA level, and you might have to speak to Ben Wagner in AAA a little bit more about Sean. I think he looked really good, though. He kept that big breaking ball in check. He wasn't just burying it in the dirt, forcing inexperienced hitters to swing and miss at it. He was locating it, and then he did a really good job of keeping the fastball on the corner and then elevating it, them to chase with 2 strikes. He just looks like a pitcher that knows his stuff and is just all about maybe tweaking it a little bit to keep it consistent. But he's a guy that I think has the potential, but everybody in the minors has potential. It's all about being consistent with it to take that next step.
Well, taking that next step this year, Taylor Cole, who's right up there. If he isn't leading the minor leagues in strikeouts, well, clearly he's in line for his next start, and then he'll retake the minor league lead in strikeouts. He's racking up the Ks, and so let's talk about Taylor. In the words of a Bluebird Banter commenter, any surprise he hasn't been promoted yet?
A little surprise. Now that we've gotten deeper in the second half and there's not that much longer to go in the regular season, about 6 weeks, I wouldn't expect to see him promoted. If it hasn't happened by now, I don't think it will happen. But we saw the first wave of the Blue Jays go up when we saw Boyd and Sekula and Flores all get promoted in May, and then the second wave go after the All-Star break when we saw Chung and Hobson and Norris all be promoted to Double-A. So I think that was really what we were waiting on, those waves, to see who was left over. And Taylor Cole was one that was left over. He was actually the All-Star game starter, so it would not have been a surprise if he had gone up. But it's not a surprise to me either that he hasn't. He wasn't the most highly touted prospect coming into this season. He's really somebody that's flown under the radar. He put up good numbers last year with you, Jesse, and Lansing, but nothing that blew anybody away. This is really his first dominant season in affiliated baseball, and I think that the Blue Jays are probably taking it slow with him because they don't really know if this is a Cinderella story and he's going to turn into a pumpkin or if he's going to sustain this. I mean, I'd say that after months of performing like this here at the advanced A level, he's not going to turn back into a pumpkin, but I think the Blue Jays are just staying a little cautious. And even though Cole is a little bit older, do keep in mind he did take 2 years off to do a mission in Canada nonetheless. So even though he's a little older than your typical prospect, he doesn't have all the extra mileage on his arm, so there's no rush, I think, to boost him up.
Heck, considering that the Dunedin Blue Jays have the Florida State League Championship in their sights, Eric Sekula, Will Browning, Taylor Cole, Kendall Graveman, it'd be great for all of them to contribute in Double-A, and yet I'm sure you don't mind seeing all those great arms sticking with you as long as you can hang on to them.
Keep making jokes when people ask if somebody's going to be promoted, and I say, gee, I hope not, and they give me this weird look. And I go, I'm just kidding, I understand. I am all for seeing our men promoted, very happy to see Newman and Pompey and now Norris and once again Boyd go to Double-A, but I also really want a championship.
Championship would be very nice. Let me ask you, in your ideal August, and I think I might know the answer to this question, but in your ideal August for the Dunedin Blue Jays, what happens?
Well, we don't have to worry about chasing a playoff spot, seeing that the Blue Jays already clinched that by winning the first half of the FSL season. But it's all about positioning ourselves for that run towards the playoffs. The season ends August 31st. So I think it's mostly about keeping our guys healthy and making sure that the entire team is clicking once we get there. We don't need the best record, but I think personal performances, rather everyone stay level or improve. We look around and see that some very hot second halves, mostly highlighted by Dwight Smith Jr. and Gustavo Pierre. And then you mentioned how good the bullpen's been, and I think Kendall Graveman has to be the one name that you really circle, though, for the second half. He's been unhittable. So if the Blue Jays here in Dunedin can keep up these personal performances and not lose too much talent to Double-A or, knock on wood, injury, I think that would be the ideal month of August.
You can find Al Hernandez on Twitter real simple at AHERNA262, Herna262, Al Hernandez with the Dunedin Blue Jays. And we'll see how things go for the DJs down the line, but it's been a fun year so far. Al, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I always love to chat about the Dunedin Blue Jays.
Well, we enjoy hearing about him. From Al in the Florida State League, down we go to the Midwest League, the Class Single-A Lansing Lugnuts, and Trey Wilson. Trey, how are things going?
Going good, Jesse. How are you today?
Doing well. Let's begin immediately with a question from Bluebird Banter, wondering about Matt Dermody, because there's been a huge difference between Dermody and the rotation and on the bullpen. So the questioner wondering, since he seems to have been way more efficient, is he pitching differently, and does he seem to relax more in that role?
Well, I think we saw at the beginning of the season that Matt Dermody was a perfectly capable starting pitcher. His numbers in the starting rotation were pretty inflated by a tough stretch that he had through the month of June. I don't really know if the change has any real relation to him being in the bullpen rather than the rotation. We can see that as he comes out each night in his relief outings, he's throwing more strikes. He's getting ahead of batters more quickly, and not really getting a lot of guys on base. So aside from an outing against Clinton a few days ago last week, he hasn't really been hit around much at all out of the bullpen. We looked at the starting rotation numbers. He was 3-4 with the 6.20 ERA through those first 10 starts, and then now out of the bullpen, 1-0, 178 earned run average for Matt Dermody in his 8 bullpen appearances. So obviously there is something that's different with it. I don't know if it can necessarily be attributed to the fact that he is out of the pen, or if maybe he's just kind of eased back, worked on a couple of things. He's definitely throwing more strikes. He's definitely changing up his pitches and keeping hitters off balance. So it's been effective. He had some problems being a little bit flat through those last few starts and giving up a lot of hits. He was getting knocked all over the ballpark, a lot of home runs. I know he gave up 2 in a start against Fort Wayne back on June 12th, and a home run in his last start that he made against the Bowling Green Hot Rods. And both of those games he gave up 7 runs in both of those games. So it was very hittable. Out of the bullpen, his batting average against him has been dropped all the way down to under 230 after it had been up over 320 when he was a starter. So we'll have to keep a closer eye on it, maybe see if there is anything that looks different compared to what we saw when he was in the rotation, but I think it's just a matter of him throwing strikes and being a little bit more relaxed.
Let's talk about the Lansing Lugnuts as a whole. Last time Dermody took the mound, fired 4 scoreless innings of middle relief in a game the Lugnuts needed it. They won it in exciting fashion 8-7 2 days ago. We can talk about how the Lugnuts won that game, or we can talk about their 3-run 9th-inning rally yesterday. This team is certainly the most thrilling team in the league.
Yeah, the last 2 days, and that's coming off of a stretch against Western Division teams at home where the Lugnuts were really just struggling, would be putting it lightly, offensively. After opening up that stretch at home with 8-0 lead against Kane County, surrendered 4 runs at the end of that game, held on for an 8-4 win. But after that was back on July 16th. From that stretch, really until we got here to Peoria, the first game of this series 2 nights ago, the offense was pretty much asleep. There was a late spark through the last couple innings against the Peoria Chiefs a couple of nights ago to take a lead into the 9th inning. Then the Chiefs posted 5 runs against Phil Kish in the bottom of the 9th to send the game to extra innings, but Chas Frank came up and drove in DJ Davis to put that was Chas Frank, right? These games are starting to run together. All these come from behind. 2 nights ago was Chas Frank's go-ahead single, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Justin Atkinson in the top of the 10th.
Okay, that one was Justin Atkinson. Okay. This has become a clustered bunch of comebacks over the last little bit. And then, so that one, an 8-7 win in extra innings after giving up 5 in the bottom of the 9th to send it to extras. And then last night, at the top of the 9th inning, 2 outs, down 2-0, didn't look like much was going on. And Dickie Jothon came up and drove in the first run, brought Mitch Ney across with a single, had a couple of runners on for Justin Atkinson with 2 outs, and he hits a couple of hopper to shortstop, and the throw bounced into the first baseman. He couldn't hang on to it, so Atkinson reached, and both runners came in to score. Dickie Joe Thom was really hustling around the bases. That put the Lugnuts ahead 3-2 last night in the top of the ninth, all of that with 2 outs, and held on to win that game to take this series. So it's been a long time since the Lugnuts have taken a series against a Western Division team. You got to go all the way back to the very beginning of this season against, it was Quad City. It's won the first 2 games against them on April 8th and 9th, and since then it's been a tough stretch against the West Division, so it's good to see the Lugnuts take a series against a team from the other side of the league.
Lugnuts are now playing 500 ball, back to 16-16. We'll see how things go. We know Dunedin's in the playoffs. We know New Hampshire probably won't make it. Now the Lugnuts looking for that playoff push, and it's right there for them. Trey, everybody in the Eastern Division is all jammed up.
That's the way that it's really been throughout not only the second half, but back in the first half as well. Luckily, the Western Division teams have been taking care of the teams that have been in there fighting for position with the Lugnuts in the standings, and that really going back all the way since these matchups with the Western Division teams started. The Lugnuts hit a bit of a losing skid, but the teams that they're competing with, Great Lakes, Lake County, and Bowling Green, as well as Dayton, they've all hit a bit of a losing skid as well. So as of right now, as we speak right now, West Michigan and South Bend sitting the top 2 spots in the Eastern Division, but that's fine because they've already clinched playoff spots. They have the 2 first half postseason spots. So it's a race right now between Great Lakes and Lansing, tied for first, I guess, the teams that aren't in the postseason, but those last 2 spots, if everything finished right now, would go to Great Lakes and Lansing. But Lake County is only 1 game back. Bowling Green is only a couple of games back, as well as Dayton only a couple of games back. And Fort Wayne hasn't quite fallen out of it yet, so this is going to be an interesting race to the finish over this last month of the season.
Speaking with Trey Wilson of the Lansing Lugnuts, Class Single A for the Toronto Blue Jays, and this is Around the Nest. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. Trey from Bluebird Banter. They were wondering a couple of questions about Aaron Sanchez, and you've gotten to see him. You got to see him when he was very young, several years back. The first was, what was the best performance you saw out of him? And the second was, any great Aaron Sanchez stories?
I can't think of any specific performances. He didn't exactly have a great year numbers-wise in 2011 when I saw him down in Bluefield, but he showed a lot of what he had coming. His fastball that year was lights out above what most other pitchers in that league were, but you got to remember that rotation. As you saw later, it also had, you saw the next year, this just about the same rotation, but Noah Syndergaard was right there in the rotation with him, as well as David Rollins, who was quite the talent in his own right, no longer in the organization, and Mitch Taylor, who was pretty good that year, also no longer in the organization. So all 4 of those guys were drawing quite a bit of attention, but nothing near what Syndergaard and Sanchez were bringing. One thing that I remember standing out towards the end of that season with him in the Appalachian League was watching him start to learn how to throw a changeup. I don't remember how much of a changeup he had before coming into that year, but I know that by the end of that season, that was a go-to pitch when he needed an out, because by this point, guys had learned how to catch up to that 96, 98 mile-per-hour fastball that he was throwing, and he was really equalizing us, the changeup. So it was great to see that transition in his young career, and it's great to see him make it all the way up to the big leagues and make it so quickly. Saw him, you and I both watched the couple of scoreless innings that he fired the other night, the perfect innings, I guess I should say, with a couple of strikeouts. So he's the second guy since I started covering the Blue Jays organization that has made it to the big leagues from the guys that I've covered. He goes right there with Kevin Pillar, so hoping to see several more make it up into the majors here pretty shortly.
How does that feel when a guy that you covered, a guy who's out there on the field in front of you in the minor leagues, and then suddenly you look up, and it's actually not so sudden, but still only a couple of years later, and there he is wearing the Blue Jays stenciled, that double-line blue.
It seems pretty sudden, and it was. It was a quick run for Aaron Sanchez, and even quicker for Kevin Pillar. He made it from Bluefield, where we had him in 2011, to the majors in less than 2 years, which is just unheard of. But for both of those guys, that's what you want to see. We watch these guys play, and we talk and project and say all the different things that we think that they can do and all the different things that we think that they're going to be. But to see the culmination of that and to see it actually come to be is just that's what we're here for. I mean, that's what we want to see with all of these guys. So it's a pretty cool experience. Growing up, I was in a AAA town, so you had those fringe guys that are always floating back and forth. It's much different when you're down at the bottom levels of the minor leagues with the Appalachian League and Rookie League, and even here in Low A with Lansing. It's interesting to see the path, and you've been around a long time, so I'm sure that you can answer this just as, or probably much more adequately, because you've seen a lot more guys make it. But that's what you want to see when you're watching these guys out here every night. You just open thinking, all right, this guy is going to be playing in front of 40,000 people every night, not too much further down the road.
Yes, yeah. For me, it set in a little bit when my mother turned on a game and there was Evan Longoria, and the fact that hearing his name pronounced by a major league announcer after I had pronounced his name not so long before, minor leagues to the major leagues, that's where you realize these guys are in the minors, they're working their way up. Not all of them will achieve their dream, but man, it feels really good to see a guy and the path that he takes to get there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Hopefully
Trey
we'll have
Wilson
many
with
more.
the Lansing Lugnuts. I beg your pardon, what was that?
I said hopefully we'll have many more coming soon.
Oh, yes. Well, let's look to the future. Our question of the week before we go down the Bluefield is the ideal month of August. So for you, how would an ideal August look for your Lansing Lugnuts?
Well, clinching a postseason spot is priority number one, at least from our standpoint. From the players' standpoint, they're pretty invested in that as well, the players and the coaching staff. At this point, they want to see this season turn into something. It's been an up-and-down roller coaster type of year. This has been a team that's been riding this 500 mark really from the beginning of April on. There was a brief losing stretch at one point, followed by a brief winning stretch, and then a brief losing stretch here and there, but it's been a 500 team all year. I would really like to see this team go a few games over 500. I think we've seen the Lugnuts at 2 games over 500 once this year, and for that to sustain, get a little bit further ahead would be pretty nice. Get into the postseason, and we'll see if maybe the pitching staff can find its footing a little bit better than it has over the last few months of the season. The offense continue to contribute, and this could be a team that could make a pretty deep run as long as it can get into the postseason of this league.
Trey Wilson with the Single-A Lansing Lugnuts on the road right now and back home next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Trey, thank you very much. From Trey, down to Kevin Fitzgerald with the Bluefield Blue Jays. Kevin, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right, Jesse. How's everything with yourself?
Going very well. Well, it would be tough to ask you about our Aaron Sanchez question of the week, so let's go right into our Around the Nest question of the week, and that is, what's an ideal August look like for your Blue Jays?
Yeah, well, I think Trey brings up an obviously a good point is that this Bluefield team is sitting at 500 right now. They've played very, very good ball in the month of July, and the last 5 days or so, Bluefield's actually lost a few games in the ninth inning and really in the late goings of games. So I think maybe an ideal August would certainly be to be able to make a playoff spot. Right now, the division that the Blue Jays play in, the Eastern Division in the Appalachian League, is really jammed up. You got 4 great teams that are all going to be vying for 2 spots. So obviously you want them to push and get one of those 2 playoff spots. But I think just going off of the last few days, Bluefield's lost 4 games over the last 5 days in the ninth inning or later. Very, very difficult stretch to go through. So finishing ball games, that's obviously going to be a point of emphasis from manager Dennis Holmberg. And you know what? I think we're getting to that point of the year where it's the dog days of summer. We're getting to the middle of July. We're pushing into August, and these guys have a 9-game road trip coming up. I think an ideal August would be to have everybody energized back up. I think it's something you always run into in minor league ball is that you're going to have those stretches where you're tired, you're fatigued. I think just getting everybody back 100% after this 9-game trip, they have a day off. You get another day off about a week or 2 later in August. So I think having everybody fresh for that final week or 2 of the season to push for a playoff spot would certainly be ideal for these guys because a lot of them, this is their first foray into a 70-game, 68 games in a 72-day span where you're playing every day, you're under the lights, you're traveling. So I think it would be to get everybody healthy, get everyone fresh and ready to go for a final push to the playoffs.
the fun thing is, even as everyone's battling their own energy, we are seeing sterling performances out of several of the Blue Jays. Let me begin with the left-handed pitcher, Evan Smith, big guy, 6'5", out of Alabama. Smith has not allowed any runs through his past 10 innings. Tell me about it.
Smith is, like you said, he's a big left-hander. You know, he came up to the Appalachian League a little bit later than some of the guys that got here at the start of the season. He came in a couple weeks later, but he's got a pretty interesting delivery, like you said. I mean, he's got the numbers right now. He's got a couple wins, and his ERA is sub 2.5 right now. He's got an interesting delivery. Big left-hander. He's got a big long arm extension before he whips it to the plate. Good fastball, a lot of heat on the fastball, and that comes with the frame. He's 6'5", and you know what? He's probably more of like 200 pounds at this point. Obviously a well-built guy. Good breaking pitch, and he's just been very consistent. He's a very level, even-keeled guy. He's never going to get too flustered on the mound. He's never going to get too down, never too negative or too positive. He's probably one of the most even-keeled guys I think we could have on our team. A funny guy as well. Very good personality. And that works with the way he pitches on the mound. You never see anything get to him. I think that is a good root of his success, is that he's very mature for such a young age, someone who's not even 19 yet. So I think that's obviously a plus on the mound, is that it takes a lot to rattle him, and we haven't seen him yet. A good strikeout pitcher who's been spotting his pitches very well, like you mentioned, over his last couple starts.
Interesting to contrast him with an older player, Joey. I think his last name is pronounced Aquino. Is that right?
Yes, you got it.
Joey Aquino, he's 23. He's going to turn 24 in mid-August. And again, there's another stalwart in your rotation.
You know what? We kind of kid with Joey that right now he's having a tough time finding the wins. It seems like, unfortunately, he's coming out of ball games and giving up a run or 2 runs or 5 innings, not an earned run during his starts, and then unfortunately he's lost a few. He's lost his hands on a few wins that he was in line for these last couple weeks, but he keeps a good attitude regardless. Joe has had a pretty interesting journey throughout his college career. He's from Hawaii, played at a junior college in Texas, and then ended up in San Diego, playing for San Diego Christian College. So he's well-traveled. He's been through almost every time zone, now ending up in Bluefield. But he is just a very, very consistent pitcher. Like Smith, his ERA, sub 2.5 right now. It's actually a 2.40 ERA. He just pitched yesterday against the Elizabethton Twins. Goes 6 innings. Doesn't allow a lot of hits. I mean, he works very well on the mound. He gave up 3 hits yesterday in 6 innings. He struck out 6 guys. He's got a pretty nice pitch that he likes to use occasionally, especially when he's out in front of hitters, that I think is a good route for a lot of his success. He's got a pretty good splitter that not a lot of people know about that he uses occasionally. And I think he is just a really good fastball changeup type of pitcher where he's going to change speeds on you, and it's tough to figure him out in that sense. But you're right. He just came out of college, 23 years old, and his first summer in professional ball to this point has been a very good success, pitching very well. He's consistent. He's getting his starts out there. Bluefield's managers for a few different pitchers on the rubber. For some of the younger guys, they'll give them a start and then have them piggyback with someone else. But Joey has gotten to start ball games since we started here in June, and he's been one of the most consistent forces. Good-spirited guy from Hawaii. He loves to surf. Unfortunately, he can't use that surfboard out here, but he's just as good with the baseball as well on the mound.
Speaking with Kevin Fitzgerald, the radio voice of the Bluefield Blue Jays, a question from Bluebird Banter. How is Richard Ureño looking? His numbers look very good for an 18-year-old kid. Is he consistently hitting the ball hard and making good contact? Is he as slick of a defender at short as some said early on when he was first signed?
I agree with all of that. The thing I love about Richie is that he's been the leadoff hitter for the Bluefield Jays all season long, plays short. He'll attack the first pitch of the game, and he'll rip it down the line. He loves to attack pitches early in the count, and it works because he's got a chance to extend his hitting streak to 20 games. He's on a 19-game hitting streak, and that just speaks for itself. you said 18 years old. He looks like a 24-year-old prospect out here. The way he plays, the way he carries himself, the way he looks on the diamond, and the way he hits at the plate. A switch hitter who's excellent from the left side. A lot of his power from the left side. He's got a couple home runs this season. Both are from the left side of the plate. But that's just the mind-boggling thing about minor league baseball is, you have a player like Richie who you wouldn't even guess is 18, just 18 years old. A couple months ago he turned 18. And just talking with a handful of scouts that have followed Bluefield around for multiple weeks. You have guys from different teams here and there. They're always bringing his name up. They're always asking about him because he's so young and he has so much talent. I mean, the future is so bright for Richie. A good shortstop. And you know what? He plays the position confidently, and that means sometimes he's going to make mistakes, but he's able to back himself up because he knows his range, he knows his depth on the field, and that will make him just such a great five-tool player right now. I think the one thing that he would want to work on is the speed a little bit. I know these coaches, they want to see him run a little more, and we'll see if that can happen again. He's so young, he's 18, and one of the best hitters on this team, no doubt about it.
The Bluefield Blue Jays are home this weekend. They're hosting the Danville Braves. Thank you very much, Kevin Fitzgerald.
Hey, thanks again, Jesse. Have a good one.
Hey, until next week. From Kevin, let's mosey our way down from the Appalachian League. Actually, it goes up the ladder, up to the Northwest League. And we're joined by Lucas Scott of the Vancouver Canadians. Lucas, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jesse. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. Let's begin. Let's talk about the fact that you have 7 Northwest League All-Stars. Now, I know the Lugnuts stole one. We took Francisco Grzeski away, but still 7 All-Stars in the season.
Yeah, and it's a lot of guys, the people you'd expect, the ones that we've been talking about here in, week out. But, the top 4 of the lineup that's been so dangerous for the Canadians this year. It's good to see all 4 of those guys go sort of in order. And then, from our pitching staff, Miguel Castro had a chance to be nominated. He's obviously much deserving. 5 wins, has him tied for first in the league, and he's been, really dominant in his starts and tough to play against. And another guy who's, mixed a couple of jagged starts with a lot of really, really great ball in Yairo Laborde. He had a chance to go for us today with Alex Anthopoulos in town, and not his best effort to date. He got into some walk trouble, which can be his MO sometimes, but he managed to go 4 innings here and still gave us a chance to win. We're clawing in here. It's the top of 7 right now, and we're down 4-3 to Hillsborough. So, all those guys going. They have a chance to play over the break down in Eugene and represent their team and play for manager John Schneider, who will be the manager of the North Division team this year.
It all works out great. Did they determine the coaching staff by the previous year's championship series, or is there another way?
I'm not quite sure how they determine. I'm not sure if it's a rotation thing or pure, like you said, purely based on who came out of that division in the previous year. But John and his staff are definitely looking forward to having the chance to go down there and play a fun game down there in Eugene.
This is Lucas Scott of the Vancouver Canadians. And the Canadians have one thing perhaps above all other teams in the NWL, and maybe you can put them up against a lot of other teams in the minor leagues in general. Tell me about the importance of the C's team speed.
That's been really key because we've got a couple guys. Ryan McBroom came in here and he gave us a big power bat, and we had, the addition of Max Pentecost here recently. But up until that point, the team really had to rely on manufacturing runs and playing some, old, an homage to the Oakland days, the money ball with getting guys in position and moving them over. 79 steals now in the season. That's first by a dozen over the nearest competitor in the league. And to show it's not just coming from, obviously we've got Field with the stolen base record at 29, and then Barreto and LeCastro up near the top. But I was just doing the math here, and we've got 13 players on the season with a stolen base and 8 guys with multiple steals. So, it's not just a couple key guys running that stat up, but a whole team philosophy. I draw on a point from last night in the second game of the doubleheader. We had a runner on second in Boomer Collins, who, bigger body, not slow by any means, but not a guy you'd expect to go. And, John Schneider sends him down to third base on an even count. The catcher tries to throw him out at third and overthrows the ball out into left field. I think just when you catch teams in those moments where you're not running in sort of the counts when you expect them to and catch them off guard, it's amazing, especially at this level, the kind of mistakes you can induce. and ended up scoring some runs. So it's been a real team-wide philosophy and something John's been having the players work on a lot in practice, and it's shown itself big in some games.
So there's the speed. We've talked about the All-Stars. A guy who probably, he was expected to be one of the top contributors, so not noted for his speed. But Boomer Collins began the season right in the middle of the order, and he came out of the blocks so slow. Now it appears he's been one of your most productive hitters.
And it's so great to see. Yeah, I used the Collins steal to kind of segue him to here in the second half. You know, he was the player of the game for us last night, and really the player of the second half. He hasn't gotten out of the gate quite as well in the second half after such an amazing run to finish things off, finishing woefully short in the first half pennant race to Spokane. But yeah, you're talking about a guy who's oldest guy on the team, 25 years old, battling the first half with a sub-200 record. Obviously not what he's accustomed to, not what the team was hoping from him. But man, did he need a page turn in the second half, and he's definitely taken advantage. Had another hit in the game here last inning for the 7 for 13 through the first 4 games of this series. And even his outs now, like 3 out of the 6 outs were warning track shots that great plays by center fielders to track down in the alley. So he's a guy that's really starting to come around, which you like to see from those older players. They maybe don't get quite as much leash in the organization as someone who's young and up and coming. So that's so great for Boomer to get off to a better start here in the second and maybe pull some of those season-long stats up.
Question from a Bluebird Banter commenter, and this might be very difficult for us to answer, and perhaps we're the wrong people to try to answer it, but Franklin Barreto wondering if he can't stick it short, is he better suited for second base or center field? Is there anything that you've seen from Barreto that would indicate otherwise?
Yeah, I think people have to remember that he's the youngest guy in this league by a good long shot. Just turned 18, and I think with a prospect like that hits as well as he does, you give him time to grow into the position and you work at it. He's one of those guys where he doesn't make the routine plays as frequently as you'd like to see, but then you see the flashes where he makes plays that the spectacular variety where he's running hard on a ball and catching it on the backhand or turning a really tough double play or getting hit deep in the hole and firing with a really strong arm over to first base. So I think I chalk that up to a little bit of maybe an experience, a little bit of youth and playing in front of the crowds here that we get here at Nat Bailey Stadium. I think if you give him a full season here at this level, he'll work a lot of those kinks out, and I think you could probably see him play that position longer going forward.
Back in 2011, speaking of inexperienced, Aaron Sanchez arrived in Vancouver. Now, Lucas, I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to see him, but have you spoken about Aaron Sanchez with Rob Fay?
Yeah, well, and Rob and the other guys up in the press box here were part of the game operations staff that had the pleasure of seeing Sanchez pitch, and they've been really giddy and excited watching him get his shot in the major leagues and how well his debut there with those 2 innings he pitched. He's a guy that I think they had pegs in the beginning. He wasn't here very, very long, but they knew that he was destined for some pretty special things by the way he could command some attention on the hill.
Joined by Lucas Scott of the Vancouver Canadians. And for the C's, they are home this weekend. They're playing Hillsborough right now. They'll play Hillsborough again tomorrow night. And then also head to the road at Spokane and then at Boise. Around the next question of the week, what does an ideal August look like for the C's?
Well, I think for this team, we saw what they could do when they put together some quality weeks and good series, and came very, very close to tracking down Spokane that was off to such a lead off the start. So I think anything short of a postseason berth would be definitely disappointing here in Vancouver. I think in terms of some personal goals, having guys like Boomer Collins and some more hitting throughout the lineup, making sure staying healthy coming into the playoffs is a big thing, and then also trying not to lose too many more guys to you guys up in Lansing. If we can keep the core guys and the team together, I think we definitely have the team to go after a 4th consecutive championship. Something that I think going into the season, even to a man, the staff were maybe a little bit skeptical of. But now that we've seen the team on the field and the way that it developed, I think that's it's championship or bust at this point. We've gotten used to it in Vancouver. We don't want to stop a good thing.
So Lucas, we're rooting you on. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Jesse. Have a great week.
We were joined this week by Lucas Scott in Vancouver, Kevin Fitzgerald in Bluefield, Trey Wilson in Lansing, Al Hernandez in Dunedin, Bob Lipman with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, and Ben Wagner in Buffalo. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. This has been Around the Nest. Check out YouTube and also SoundCloud for all the latest and all of our weekly podcasts. Till next week, though, we wish you well and enjoy the baseball.